Welcome to Practical Business Technology, where we keep you in the know about technology's impact on business. Today's show is sponsored by the Maricopa County Bar Association, and our host is Dave Kinsey, author and owner of Total Networks. Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Dave.
And today we're going to talk about how to avoid multi-factor authentication failures.
Avoid the epic fail.
So, multi-factor authentication is one of the most powerful tools in our security toolbox.
Yeah, very much so.
We need to have strong passwords and good security software and patching and all these other things. But multi-factor is really a super extra layer on top of your password that is very important.
It's expected to do security right. When you log into your bank, people expect that, right? You expect you'll get a code on your phone, right? You might get a text message on your phone. Better than a text message is an app, but a text message is decent. So there are different ways to have it. The idea being, right, something you, not just something you know, because something you know can be
something is
that's one factor. That's
like your password.
That's your password. A second factor being something you have, like your mobile phone. That's your classical second factor for multi-factor, right? So you may have also voice print or whatnot, but the most common thing is your mobile phone. And yeah, this has been commonplace for banks for years. Nobody would even dream, right, of having an online banking where you don't have multi-factor. It's just not done. Well, the same thing with your email for Office 365, for logging in to your computer over the internet, or logging into your applications over the internet.
Right, and just to back up, someone might be listening and thinking, gosh, I don't think I have to enter a code when I log into my bank. You don't every time, but you do the first time you log in
from a
new browser, or if you've cleared your cookies and cache, then you might have to enter it a second time.
Yeah.
If you get a new computer or whatever, so you'll be prompted when it's unexpected because you haven't done it from that system before.
Correct. And the idea is, Russia's really easy to pick on now with the Russian hacker, but so say you have the hacker in Russia that somehow knows your password, because maybe you've reused your password, which you shouldn't do as well. But say they get the password for that site, and if you don't have multi-factor authentication turned on, well, they just logged into whatever that site was. Exactly. So but now with it being, with having the second factor, you could have a terrible password, which you shouldn't have. But if you had a password, you need that second factor.
So when we talk about multi-factor authentication, before we get into the pitfalls or the things to watch out for, I guess we want to make sure everyone understands that you need to think about multi-factor authentication for literally every single separate thing that you log into.
Correct.
So you might have it for your work computer. You might have it for your cell phone. You might have it for Office 365. You might have it for Facebook or Twitter or whatever website.
Whatever business application you may log into.
Just because you have multi-factor authentication turned on for one thing, that doesn't mean that you have it for everything.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to think about, and especially for people that are, if you're dealing with sensitive information where, it has to be confidential and you can't have somebody hack into it, it's important. And this is also why when you obviously want to do everything in your power to avoid breaches, to avoid ransomware or evil things like that. One of the things that you also can do to help protect you is actually have cyber liability insurance, which also helps kind of protect you in the event of a bad actor doing something. One of the underwriting questions that is pretty much universally asked is, do you have multi-factor authentication? And you want to be careful when you answer that question. You want to think, once again, when I say yes, for what? I have it for everything I log into, and you want to be thinking that through. You want to make sure you have it for everything where you need to have it locked.
So I guess that is one mistake that you.
So there we're
could,
hitting. We're hitting on one of the areas.
I already picked one is thinking about all your systems.
Yeah.
Then okay, let's just pick one. For us, we have a ticketing system that we use. So when our clients contact us.
We have service management, yeah.
For support, it creates a ticket. Well, that system, we have all our employees have logins, and all of our employees have to have MFA.
Yeah.
Well,
they have to have multi-factor authentication.
It used to be, it isn't anymore, but a long time ago, one person might have it turned on and another person maybe doesn't. Now it's globally enforced for everybody, but there are still some programs out there where maybe you have two-factor turned on for yourself, but your colleague maybe doesn't have it turned on.
Yeah, so you're hitting on now another area of potential failures, making sure not only do you have it on for all the applications, but for all the users of those applications. A classic example where this also where you can get into this, now I'm going to go into yet another area to add on to that, is say, Office 365. Very popular application. Most people have, listening to this podcast will probably have Office 365, for their business. You may have other applications, but most of Office 365. And this applies for, for Google or other alternatives as well. You want to have multi-factor authentication. But say you turn on multi-factor authentication for all your users in your system. Well, there's a process where there's kind of a two-step process where you enable it, and then the end user actually has to enroll and accept it. And so until it's accepted, it's not enforced. And so that is an area where you can also run into a pitfall. So
right. So let's just pretend
making sure that you're auditing that.
Pretend I've got a law firm of 100 employees. We've been using Office 365 for a while, and I asked my IT provider, turn on MFA for everyone. So they go turn it on. 99 of our employees follow the instructions that are sent, and they enroll and they set it all up. But one person, they don't. Well, actually, they can still get their email. They can still log in until they go to a new computer, new device, I think is when they would get prompted.
Well, there are different ways to set this up. But yeah, basically, you're going to need to make sure, and the whole concept, in terms of managing security, a lot of managing security is checklists and audits. Mm-hmm. And so it's basically looking for for that one employee where you're going to get burned because you don't have, say, MFA enabled. You think you do, you turned it on, but it hasn't been enrolled. You haven't done everything to follow up to make sure that that's in place. So those are. Yeah, this
is a good point, Dave. I think auditing are all the applications that have company sensitive data enforced with multi-factor. Are all employees having it set up? And not just, we said it has to be turned on, but verifying that it really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are some of the key examples. So, the very first problem is not committing to it, right? Not saying, I need to have multi-factor authentication anywhere. So if you care about security, and everyone hopefully listening to this podcast cares about security, you need to embrace that, right? And you need to be saying, I'm going to have multi-factor authentication everywhere.
It does add a little bit of extra effort, but trust me, it's so much better than having to deal with a breach.
It's a lot less effort than dealing with the fallout of your system getting hacked. And so let's now, just to follow up on this, let's put a little accurate fear. This is informational fear, to justify reasons why you should be very afraid if you do not have multi-factor turned on everywhere. There's a lot of potential risks. One of the most common things that will happen if you do get an account compromised is that, say, on Office 365, we'll use that as an example, as a specific example. the attacker will generally try to spam. They will try to email everybody from contact lists, everybody they can, and pretend to be from you. Now, people can pretend to be from you, for other email phishing and all like that. But when they actually are you because they're sending it from your Office 365 account, it's far more successful because it gets rid of, gets past generally also lots of, anti-spam filters that may block it. It will look like it's legit. And so depending on how the email is sent, if the attacker's good, they may send a thing that's like, hey, something reasonable, here's a, and it could have a payload of an attachment in the thing, or there can do all sorts of problems with it. And think about what's going to happen when you do that. If you have it where it potentially goes out to, say, all your clients, or a large subset of your clients, now, how disruptive is that to your business and to them to have to deal with that? Because they're going to be asking you, wait, was this real? And there's all sorts of wasted communication. There's an erosion of trust. That who is it that I'm working with that's letting this happen?
You may have compliance requirements that are costly.
Yeah, and there are things that you may be required to deal with from a legal perspective as well, where, and that could be expensive depending on, there may be data breach issues, but say even just the nuisance factor and the erosion of trust from the most rudimentary attack. Now that's if you get lucky. If you get lucky, you only potentially lose a bunch of clients or at least get a bunch of clients irritated, major psychological withdrawal from that client's trust in you. Worst case is you actually do have a data breach. Well, data breach or ransomware where, people can break in and encrypt things. You just don't want to go there. You could have data lost. You can have people, once again, threaten to, to extort your data.
It's important to have lots of layers of security, and multi-factor authentication is really a high up on their priority.
Yeah, and because really what you're talking about here too is you have to do security right. You have to do all sorts of things right. The bad guys only need to succeed once, but this is effectively locking your front door. This is the authentication. This is your login, and so usernames and password is insufficient protection. Everybody knows this or should know this now. And so basically you have to make sure you have multi-factor as your reasonable lock.
I can tell that you're very passionate about this, Dave.
See, this is a podcast. So you don't get to see the visual. You don't get to see me like my hands moving and whatnot. No, but this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And the thing is, most people get it nowadays. It used to be they didn't. If you're one of those people that aren't getting it and are resisting multi-factor authentication, that's ridiculous in this day and age. But now you have to do all the things to do it right.
So what are other things that we might want to avoid?
Sure.
What happens when you get a new phone?
Yeah,
I know in my phone I have, I don't know how many. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of codes for different accounts for multi-factor. So
yeah, but you'll just need to re-register the application.
You need to re-register the applications.
If you
need help with that, you can reach out to us.
But you don't need to re-register every app. You'll generally need to you'll need to just move your authenticator app over, so to re-register that app. So, and it is better to use an app than it is to use the text messaging. Obviously, the text messaging, there's really nothing to re-register because it's just you have your mobile phone number as long as your mobile phone doesn't change. But yeah, the app is somewhat more secure in that it is easier to subvert text messages. I mean, it's relatively secure, but there are ways where it can be subverted. So yeah, let's talk about other examples. Now, when you talk about apps, there's different ways that multi-factor authentication works, and here's another way you can get burned, and I have seen this. You have it oftentimes where you basically have to enter in a code, but people don't. People get irritated by that, right? Because every security thing you need to do. So a very common solution is to have the pop-up on your phone. So you have an app where it does just a pop-up to click on Let Me In. And it's a perfectly good, fine way to get in. The one thing you just need to make sure that all the users that use this system are reasonably diligent.
If you get a push notification saying, do you want to allow someone access to your software or your system?
If you're not expecting
did you request it?
Yeah, if you're not expecting it,
if you didn't just,
that's the hacker.
If you didn't just try to log in somewhere and click the button to say, log in, and then you get a push notification, you're expecting it. Well, we've unfortunately seen people...
I've seen this once.
Click accept when they weren't accepting it,
Yeah.
and they just let the bad guy in.
Yeah, so you need to obviously, basically, if you get a pop-up message on your phone saying, hey, do you let me in? And you didn't just go log in, that is, all bells and alarms should go off. Wait a second, that's the hacker. The hacker figured out my password, and so you should reasonably freak out. No, not freak out.
Go change your password.
You need to go change your password right away if that happens. Don't freak out. Remain calm. All is well. They can't get in because they don't have your multi-factor, but be very diligent about it. Do not accept the multi-factor thing because that's saying, oh yes, please let the hacker in. Don't do that, and go change that password immediately because it's been compromised.
Now, I could see where sometimes those push notifications come up and you have to actually pay attention to say reject or approve.
Sure.
So if you made a mistake, call your IT immediately.
Immediately if something like that happened. So, yeah. So that's another example. But basically, once again, this all comes down to, so there's some training that hopefully people are diligent, and also you train them to do that. And you just want to make sure that you've got your checklists and you've got your audits.
So, lesson learned in summary, it only takes one account or one employee to not have security in place to let
bad things
a
happen.
bad thing happen.
Yeah, and so you can't afford that. So that's why you need to make sure every user has the multi-factor on for everything, and that you audit it. And so then once again, when you look at your managing security, security is about risk assessments, doing regular risk assessments, seeing what your risks are. At your next risk assessment, or you can do your risk assessment now, ask yourself, I would implore you to ask yourself, okay, we have multi-factor. Do we really? How do I know? Trust but verify here. How do I know that every place where I need to have the multi-factor is in fact protected? Every user, every application that needs to be there. And how do I make sure that that stays there? Do we have a review process to make sure that that is in fact, accurate? So, all right.
Yeah, this is good, important stuff, and like we said, you can't see Dave's enthusiasm over the podcast, but hopefully you can hear it in his energy. If you have any questions, as always, give us a call.
Yeah, so stay safe, enable your multi-factor, and relax and carry on and be secure.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.